This is Daily Armenia, CivilNet's daily news digest. Here's what you need to know today. Yerevan was ready to sign a landmark document with Baku before Azerbaijan's Ilham Aliyev pulled out of a planned meeting today, Armenia's Nikol Pashinyan has said. We thought there was a chance to sign a landmark document. We assess that probability as being very high, Pashinyan told lawmakers yesterday. He added, "Of course, we regret that the meeting will not take place, but we hope that this framework document, which is on the table, will be signed at an opportune time. I am ready to sign that agreement." While it was not immediately clear what exactly that document entails, Pashinyan said he believes he can reach a peace deal with Aliyev in a short time if Armenia and Azerbaijan recognize each other's territorial integrity, with Soviet-era administrative boundaries as international borders, and agree that transit routes in the region be controlled by the countries in which they are located. Pashinyan and Aliyev were initially set to hold talks today in Granada, Spain, with France's Emmanuel Macron, Germany's Olaf Scholz, and the European Union's Charles Michel. However, Aliyev pulled out of the talks unexpectedly yesterday, saying Paris and Berlin had rejected a proposal by Baku to give Turkey a spot at the negotiating table. Azerbaijan also cited France's move this week to begin selling military equipment to Armenia. It would have been Pashinyan and Aliyev's first meeting since Azerbaijan's lightning offensive against Nagorno-Karabakh and subsequent seizure of the region last month. After that, more than 100,000 people, almost all of Nagorno-Karabakh's population, fled to Armenia. Despite Aliyev's snub, Pashinyan said he still plans to go to Granada today to meet with world leaders who are gathering there for the European Political Community Summit. In related news, Scholz, the German chancellor, spoke by phone with Aliyev yesterday to reiterate his support for an Armenia-Azerbaijan negotiating track organized by the EU. Germany is strongly committed to a negotiated settlement and lasting peace between Azerbaijan and Armenia based on the principle of the territorial integrity of Armenia and Azerbaijan, Scholz's office said in a statement. Since the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh war, the EU has taken on a substantially more active role in the region. At present, Brussels, with Washington's support, coordinates one track of Armenia-Azerbaijan negotiations, while Russia oversees a separate track. So far, neither has made any discernible progress toward a peace deal. Despite pulling out of the meeting planned for today in Spain, pro-government Azerbaijani news sites said yesterday Baku would be open to talks with Yerevan if the previous EU-Azerbaijan-Armenia tripartite format is revived. In more news from Europe, the EU's legislative arm voted overwhelmingly today to adopt a non-binding resolution that calls for the EU to immediately step up support for Armenia and urges the EU to impose targeted sanctions on Azerbaijan. The European Parliament strongly condemns Azerbaijan's pre-planned and unjustified military attack against Nagorno-Karabakh, which members say constitutes a gross violation of international law and human rights. The current situation amounts to ethnic cleansing, the resolution reads in part. The resolution, which passed 491 to 9, continues. Parliament calls on the EU to undertake a comprehensive review of its relations with Baku. In the event of military aggression or significant hybrid attacks against Armenia, Parliament also calls for a full EU import stop of Azeri oil and gas. Though the resolution marks some of the strongest language by any international actor since Azerbaijan's assault on Nagorno-Karabakh last month, the EU's executive branch is not legally obliged to take it into account. Back in Yerevan, the Armenian government yesterday set aside about $19 million for people forcibly displaced from their homes in Nagorno-Karabakh, with plans to earmark another $4.5 million in the coming days. Starting tomorrow, every person displaced from Nagorno-Karabakh, regardless of age, is entitled to a one-time cash payment of about $230 transferred directly to their bank accounts. Banks have been directed to open accounts for people from Nagorno-Karabakh free of charge in order to facilitate the payments, according to Narek Mukherjee, Armenia's Labor and Social Affairs Minister. In other news, a group of unidentified individuals vandalized Armenia's only synagogue this week, smashing windows and smearing red paint on the walls of the Mordechai Navi Jewish Religious Center. The incident was swiftly condemned by Armenia's foreign ministry, which said yesterday in a post on X, formerly Twitter, "There is no place for hate and intolerance in Armenia." While the motive behind the incident, which took place during the Jewish holiday of Sukkot, remains unconfirmed, Armenian Telegram channels quickly began describing it as an act of retaliation for Israel's arms sales to Azerbaijan. In the weeks leading up to Azerbaijan's offensive against Nagorno-Karabakh last month, open-source trackers showed repeated flights between a military base in Israel and bases in Azerbaijan. It is understood Azerbaijani forces largely used weapons supplied by Israel and Turkey during the Blitz, which left at least 200 Armenians dead and scores more wounded, including civilians. And finally, you can also check out the latest episode of CivilNet's Insights program. This week, host Eric Hakopian talks about why Azerbaijan chose this moment to ethnically cleanse Nagorno-Karabakh's Armenians, how the United Nations' recent mission to the region shows the organization's bankruptcy, and what Armenia's new decision to join the International Criminal Court means for the country. The full episode is up now on civilnet.am. And as always, please follow CivilNet for the latest news and independent reporting from our contributors on the ground here in Armenia.